Hey there, friends. It's Obnoxious Rhinoceros for another Sunday morning roundup of last week's cartoons. This cartoon was inspired by an Instagram user who recommended a Humble Tombstone. In fact, it was two users who represented Humble and one represented Tombstone, and I thought they worked well together. It was also the end of a Sunday where I draw most of these cartoons on the weekends, and then I spend a week coloring them in on a daily basis. This was the last of the cartoons I was drawing one Sunday, and I'm not gonna lie, I liked that I had an idea that was easy to draw. I thought it'd be easy to color too, but I happened to do this one at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I think I was delirious. It took me way longer to color this than it should have. I try to use that texture in the background to make the tombstone look like a stone, which is the first time I've imported a texture into one of these cartoons. And you can tell I'm delirious because I got confused with my layers. I think there's a whole 10 minutes of me just plopping through my layers trying to find where I'd implied the bevel and emboss. I never could find it, so I worked around it. You know what? In the past couple of years, I've gone through bursts of drawing these cartoons. Usually, when I was on an extended vacation or some other period where my normal routine in life had been interrupted, and I'd stick with them for a couple of weeks and then stop doing them. But this time around, during quarantine, I thought I'd start drawing them, but my goal was to keep drawing them, to do just about one a day. I do 5 a week now, and see how long I could keep up that discipline. And my daughter told me recently that she had read that discipline is for when your enthusiasm wanes. When I go through bursts of creativity and I'm enthusiastic about the cartoons. So then after a while, you're going to have a day where you're just not feeling it. And then the trick is, can the discipline kick in? Can you keep drawing even though you're not feeling it? And some of the cartoons from this week are a result of discipline carrying me over the enthusiasm gap. I'm not sure if that reflects in the artwork. Online, these were a mixed bag of cartoons this week. This one's called Impossible Rainbow, but ironically, the prompt that started it was Invincible Rainbow. And that girl with the big pigtails on the right, she was in a cartoon called Invincible Pigtails once. And I thought I'd bring her back for Invincible Rainbow. But then, through all my brainstorming of what I was going to do for it, somehow in my head, Invincible turned to Impossible. And then I saw this Mario Kart Rainbow Road kind of thing. And then I was watching Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, in the Alec Baldwin episode, Jerry Seinfeld describes fatherhood as a surfboard on a rainbow. And I like the idea of these two girls on surfboards on this impossible rainbow. I like that I chose orange for the sky. Most of the time when you see a rainbow, it's when there's a lot of interesting atmospherics going on. And whenever I draw a sky anymore, I always ask myself, does it need to be blue? And if it doesn't need to be blue, then what other type of atmospheres are going to be? Which makes for more interesting cartoons, I think. Another Instagram follower suggested a sword-swinging centipede. And centipede swinging a sword made me think immediately of a Roman soldier. I learned during the research of this cartoon that a Roman soldier was called a century, and that the commander of a century, or 100 Roman soldiers, was called a centurion. And I entitled this one Centurion Centipede. Or Centipede Centurion? I can't remember which way it goes. We'll see at the end. By the nature of this, the fact that I wanted to show a centipede with multiple arms, using multiple weapons, fighting multiple enemies, meant that the drawing itself was cluttered. And sometimes you look at a line drawing that's got a lot going on and it's confusing. And then the challenge in the coloring is to disambiguate the confusion. And I like the color palette that I picked for this, but as I watch it unfold again in retrospect, I may have made the centipede more green and gray so that the red of the ants in front of them could pop. And then I struggled with this background because I didn't think there was enough of a contrast between the background and the bugs. So I changed the color there and fiddled it around. There's another example of when a sky doesn't need to be blue. I wanted to have those smoke plumes in the background to make it look like a real war scenario. Of all the cartoons I did last week, this one's my favorite. I'm a fan of the moment before or moment after disaster scenarios. One of my most influential cartoonists was Sergio Aragonés, who drew for Mad Magazine, and he drew Gru the Wanderer. If anyone ever heard of that, this cartoon barbarian that was stupid and went around causing problems. He liked to do, moment before or after disaster cartoons. He did a lot of pantomime cartoons where you didn't need any real words. So this is a Oblivious Janitor. You'll see I used that bright pink on the walls there. That wasn't because I ever intended for the walls to be pink, but when I wanted to select that portion of the wall, and when you pick a color that contrasts sharply with everything else in your drawing, it's easier to select in Photoshop. My son saw this and he felt like there should maybe be like a shoe in the elevator shaft to show that the janitor was falling down, or some other representation of the janitor, but I thought the whole point of the cartoon was to show no janitor at all, and that what we're left with is just the circumstantial evidence of a oblivious janitor. I love watching the shadows come in, because you take a relatively flat cartoon and then it just make it burst off the page. And that's from someone who grew up watching, reading cartoons in the newspaper, where the amount of colors that you could use were limited. How much, and most of the times the cartoons weren't even in color, so you had to draw for black and white. And I still struggle with that. I still draw for black and white. I'm starting to change the way I draw, knowing that I'm going to color them later and do a lot of the work in color. But the instinct is to draw it and to use heavy. If I was drawing on black and white, I'd use heavy patches of black, but you can't do that and then color them later. So the other one was the moment after disaster cartoon. This is the moment before disaster cartoon. Hopefully you understand that frog is going to make the blonde girl jump up, and then somehow this little mischievous kid has managed to tie their ponytails together in a way that's going to be hilarious when they both jump up, terrified of the frog. The prompt for this was knotted summers. Then it occurred to me the summers could be girls. And here we go. I had sort of a Norman Rockwell image in mind when I did this. And that's it, folks. Those are my cartoons for this third week of July. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And thanks for following me on Instagram, Obnoxious Rhinoceros. We'll see you next week.